Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, my friends. I'm so happy to be here with you today, and I hope you're doing well and better than well today. Today, we are going to talk about using time, our daily lives, the time in our daily lives to support the life and the marriage that we want. And really what we're talking about here is how we can make the most of our time and what gets in the way of doing that in order to really live out and bring to life the things that most matter to us in our lives, like our marriages. I want to start by saying one of the things that's pretty common for us as highly sensitive people is that we can have a kind of challenging relationship with time. Or what I hear often is that we feel a lot of time pressure and sort of a sense of scarcity around time. And actually, oftentimes this is experienced kind of like overwhelm. There's so much to do. I've always got so much to do, right? And like, gotta get there on time and can't be late. And kind of like we have this pressure producing, like demon, I don't know, critter, I call it the lizard brain in us. That's like, has a lot of stress around time. And really, as highly sensitive people, is that we can really tend towards having a scarcity-laden brain, meaning there's this part of us that sees what's lacking and missing and wrong. And that part of us is pretty strong in highly sensitive people. And that's for survival reasons. It's part of how we were able to survive as a species by having amazing, highly sensitive people like us who are looking out vigilantly for what's wrong and missing, right? And so our brain kind of our brains, we don't just have one brain, we each have our own brain, but they're very similar in that they have this tendency to kind of scan the world looking for what's wrong and missing, right? And this, of course, happens with our experience of time as well. So when we feel this lack of time, or we have this time pressure, right, around how we use our time, it's, or some of you might not be resonating with time pressure, but many of us are also, or may alternatively be just unconscious about how you're actually using your time. What happens is that we end up not having the kind of life that we deeply want. And oftentimes that includes the loving marriage we really deeply yearn for. Because putting time towards what we most want in our lives is how we create a life that has those things we most want, that has success in those realms that we most cherish. So if you don't have the life you want, the marriage you want, more often than not, part of this has to do with not actually dedicating the time and attention to it, that it actually takes to have that marriage that you want and that life you want. More often than not, we have some sort of unconscious programming that's running the show that's making us think we have to spend time in certain ways. We have to do lots of things that actually aren't contributing to what we most want. And we end up, because of this, spending a lot of time doing a lot of things that aren't actually moving us towards the marriage we really want or the life we really want. So if you're hearing this, I want to reiterate, if you're oh, that sounds like might be going on for me, I don't want there to be any blaming yourself here, right? Like, it's not like you're choosing this on purpose. It's a function of our lizard brains and the conditioning that we have from our culture. And perhaps that you really just haven't been conscious of it until today, that maybe you're dedicating time to things that aren't as important to you, and therefore not creating for yourself what you most want in your life. And so today we're going to change that. We're going to take a closer look at that and really take stock and reevaluate if we feel like we're honoring, if you feel like you're honoring and aligning with what you most want. And so take that step to giving yourself the gift of making the thing that most matters to you come to life. Or check in as part of this to see if you may want to make room to expand your attention and dedication to those truly important things, the things that matter most to you, the things that you most want to come to life. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit about my own personal experience with that, which with this work, I've been really working on this lately when it comes to my life, because I know intimately having time, what it's like to have time pressure and time scarcity issues. I think it's one of my bigger pieces of work currently in my life. And for me, it's more about not my marriage, because that's so great. And I've figured out how to spend lots of time, or plenty of time, continuing to maintain that. And right. But for me, it's more, my work around this is more about having time, creating time for a life that's like just like where I'm doing things that like pleasurable things, like things that I just enjoy, that just fuel me, where I don't like space. I call it spaciousness. And I had to figure out first, to start to bring myself more of a sense of quote unquote spaciousness in my life, in my daily life. I had to really figure out first that it was a priority, right? And then get to work to create more space for that spaciousness, to make more time for it in my life. So we're going to look at a similar thing for you, but about what matters to you. But before we do, I'm going to dive in a little bit more to, talking about our lizard brain and why we don't dedicate enough time, oftentimes in our lives, to what really matters to us. And again, it's because our lizard brain, and if you're like, what the heck is a lizard brain? Why does she keep talking about a lizard brain? I highly recommend going to listen to episode number 6. I introduce it in that episode. It's a foundational concept that's going to help you so much in your marriage. So have a listen to that. But again, lizard brain likes to see what's lacking, right? The things that are scarce. And it tends to do this a lot with time. And if this is going on for you, it sort of will sound like this in your head. Like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. There's no time for XYZ. I don't have enough time. Right? And you might feel kind of burdened by all the things that you quote unquote have to do. You might feel like you're running around on a hamster wheel, like life is a little bit relentless, right? And you also might find that the things that you do actually most care about aren't as vibrant, like your marriage. Like your marriage isn't as alive, and all the good things that you want in that isn't happening because you haven't been giving it attention, right? Think about it like a garden. I love that metaphor for our marriages. It's like, or anything that we want to cultivate in our lives is like, it's like a garden. If we don't attend to it, if it doesn't get the sunshine and we don't give it water and like the compost that it needs to thrive, it's not gonna thrive, right? So when we're telling ourselves, I don't have time to attend to the garden, then the garden, again, is going to wither. So when we let this lizard brain, this scarcity mindset around time dictate our lives, then what we're actually unconsciously creating, or what we're unconsciously allowing, is our lives to just happen to us. and scarcity to be what drives the bus of our lives, what runs the show of our lives, which means the result that we're going to end up with is a lack of what we really want, right? Like a life that's not teeming with the experiences we really want and the things that most matter to us. When we let lack be the driver of our lives, we create an experience of lacking. In other words, like let me use myself as an example. Like my old story in my mind used to be like, I don't have enough time for like spaciousness in my schedule. I have so much to do. I have to do this and that and that and that. There's no time for spaciousness. So what I would end up doing is fill my time with all the things I have to do. And if there was a hole in my schedule that I could have let myself enjoy spaciousness, I would fill it with something else because there was always something I have to do, right? There wasn't enough time to do everything. So I had to fill that, you see? And then I'd feel burdened and unable to enjoy and like what I really wanted, which was that sense of spaciousness. In other words, when we live from that place of lack, we create a life that doesn't have the fullness that we want. When we let any kind of scarcity drive our lives, we're no longer the agent of our lives. And we end up just feeling like we're taking what's being given, and that can feel insufficient. And instead of choosing on purpose what we want our lives to be, which is always an option for you. We are incredible creative beings. We can create the lives we want, absolutely. But not if we're constantly stuck in the scarcity mindset, especially when it comes to time. So because you are listening to this podcast, I know that in your heart, your marriage is a priority to you. You want your happiness in your marriage. That really matters to you deeply. You want to have a better marriage. And because you're listening, you are dedicating some time to your marriage, which is amazing. Much more than many people do. And so I really want to congratulate you. I want to celebrate you for that and recognize you for actually putting some time into prioritizing what most matters to you. And I want to do a little deeper dive and look at, are you doing this as much? Are you prioritizing your marriage or what most matters to you in your life as much as it takes to actually create it? To actually have that part of your life be as amazing as you can only dream it could be. Are only dreaming at this point, it could be. So we're going to start by looking at our priorities and really figuring those out right now. So we're going to look at two different categories first. The two different categories of priorities. So here's my question to you. And this would be a beautiful thing to have a piece of paper and a pen and even pause the episode if you can to write them down. Because that act of writing them down is powerful. So here are the questions. What are your top 3 most important things that you want to have or experience in this life? And I'll ask this question a couple different ways because I know sometimes asking it from different angles can help get the answers flowing. So what 3 things would you need to have happen? What 3 areas do you most want to be rich and successful in your life for you to leave this life truly fulfilled? That was maybe a complicated way of saying this, so let me try again. What 3 things would you need to have happen for you to leave this life in the end truly fulfilled? What 3 areas of your life most matter to you in a simple way of putting it? So we'll call these answers of yours, these 3 answers of yours, your life goals or your priorities, your top priorities. Okay? So you can pause and finish writing those down if you'd like. And now we're going to move in to the next category, which is really just like zoning in deeper. So if your answer to that last category of question included having a great marriage or having a deeply loving, intimate relationship or anything related to having a life partner, then let's zone in on that a little bit more. So what I mean by that is just asking yourself the question, what are the top 3 dreams that you have for your marriage? What's most important for you in your experience of your marriage? And I want to give you some examples from actual clients of mine, because we do a little taking stock like this process very early on, because taking stock like this is how we get the fuel to create what we want, right? So this will give you a taste and might kind of open some doors into what you want. And actually, I know that it's not always so easy to figure this out right away. So I invite you to let this one marinate a little bit, or come back to it and get more detailed in the future. But see what comes to you as I offer these examples, and as you think on what your top 3 dreams for your marriage are. So these are what my clients have said. I want to feel secure and safe in our relationship no matter what. I want to feel joy at engaging in shared activities, fun together, laughing. I want to feel excited and happy to see him at the end of time apart. I want to feel good knowing that we bring out the best in each other. I want to feel attractive and desirable. So right, each one of these I want to is like a dream or a priority. And obviously I'm listing a lot more than 3 here. You choose 3. I'm going to give you a few more from clients. I want to look at him every day and feel joy that this man loves me and wants to be with me. I want to feel centered in my communication, to not react, but to thoughtfully express my feelings and ideas. I want to feel safe and secure. I want to be more accepting and open-minded and light in my heart, so I can enjoy all we both bring to our life together. So that's just like a spattering of what some people's priorities are, other highly sensitive women like you. So now it's your turn to just choose 3. We don't want to overload ourselves. I think that's oftentimes how we get overwhelmed, is we're like, I want 70 things, right? 70 things are my priority. That makes it like, for us as highly sensitive people, that's when we go into freeze mode, right? Overwhelm is like freeze mode, and we don't actually get anything done. We don't actually make progress towards what we really want or towards our goals, right? So choose 3, and just for now, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just write down 3 for now. By writing them down, by getting this clarity, you're going to really have a clear idea of what you want to focus on to reach the larger goals you have of having an amazing, loving marriage with your honey. But even if your goal is sort of generalized right now, like I want my marriage to be super loving and strong, we can proceed to the next step. And, if you have 2 other priorities from the first category, right? Maybe it's your career, maybe it's how you raise your kids, right? You wrote down 3 top priorities. So you can redo this whole process for those 2 later if you want to. But for now, we're just going to focus on looking at that marriage that you want and prioritizing that. So now we want to see how aligned you are in supporting that dream or that priority, right? In terms of like how you go about your daily life. So in other words, let's look at how you actually use your time in your day-to-day life is reflective of this big priority to you, right? Before I tell you how to do this, I do again want to reiterate that when we're doing this, as you do this, I want you not to fall into self-blame, and instead to approach this exercise with love and compassion towards yourself. And, if you find that how you live your daily life doesn't actually truly support what you really want, doesn't really support the marriage that you're wanting, that's normal, right? And the awareness of that is a gift. It's a powerful step to change that and to reorient and start using your daily life in support of creating and having what you most care about. Okay, so here's how we do this part. I want you to go ahead and ask yourself, how much time do I actually spend in reality every day working towards this priority? This goal I have of having an amazing marriage. So to get a little more detailed about this, and we can get even slightly tedious, Maybe it won't feel like that. I invite you to go through the last 3 days or so. Yep, just the last 3 days, and make a list of how you actually spent your time, like from waking up to falling asleep at night. Like minute by, not, I mean, it doesn't have to be minute by minute, but like as detailed as you can, half hour by half hour. And again, I want you to do this really super honestly, right? Like not trying to like make yourself feel better by kind of embellishing, oh, I actually did prioritize this a little bit, right? Like just take an honest, raw look at how you actually spent your time over the last 3 days. And if 3 days doesn't feel fair to you, you can, if you want to like look at it over a slightly longer period of time, you can do it for the last week. Or you can track it into the future. That might be easier. I have a hard time remembering like how I spend my time every day if I look back too many days. So you can just do it for the next few days also. So start really seeing how you are actually using your time and whether that's supportive of creating what you most want in your marriage. And so that's the next step is once you've written that down, ask yourself if the amount of time you're putting towards your marriage are in alignment with what you most want. Or does it look like how you spend your time is not in support of those goals? It's really good information to have. So be really honest with yourself. Truth be told, most of us don't spend anywhere near like a proper proportion of time on what most matters to us. And so we create lives that don't feel full of meaning, that don't feel fulfilling. Yeah. Because any dream or goal, priority that you have, anything you really want to succeed at deeply, requires you to dedicate time and energy to it. Yeah. Now, as a sovereign being, you get to decide how much time you put in towards, your priorities and bringing those dreams to life. Like there's not like an arbitrary number. Like I can't just say, oh, you need to put in 5 hours a week, right? That's not up to me. We each get to decide. We each get to sort of sense into what's actually appropriate for us to be putting towards our priorities in terms of time, right? But so I invite you to kind of check in with your inner knowing, and I bet it will tell you whether you're giving as many hours as necessary, we could just say, or not. And I also want to add, like, if you are spending time with your spouse, like if you are spending some time with them, but it's still not yielding, like it's still not, producing the experience that you want in your marriage, it's not all about time either. It's like how you're using that time, right? So that's important. And on that note, if you're honest with yourself and the time that you're spending with your spouse is like, you're talking about trivial things and tasks and like the to-do list, all that, then let's not count that as time truly building the connection and kind of engaged love that you want. Unless, of course, you're doing the task talk that I talked about last episode. Okay, so you should go back and listen to that if you're like, what's that? Because this is a really useful way to actually prioritize your marriage. And it addresses how we use our time. So go check that one out. But once you really see how your attention and energy and time is not actually that invested in making your marriage the amazing one you really want, you can, of course, consciously shift right now to changing that, to actually putting it in to that marriage you want, to creating that marriage you want, right? So if your marriage is a top priority, if lightness and joy in marriage is to you, right? If that was one of the priorities for you, you got to prove it to yourself. Yeah? By giving that, by working towards that, by putting time and energy into making that so in your marriage. And yes, even without your husband's conscious effort on this, you can create that. That's, if you're like, but how does just one person do this? Then you got to listen to the whole podcast, honey, because this podcast has so many good will tell you about that and teach you how in so many ways for you to be the one who brings that into your marriage. And actually right now, a really great episode for that is episode 5 on the early basics. All right. So the next question I have for you is continuing this process is if you find that you aren't, right, spending as much time, or maybe there's a deficit of your time spent towards prioritizing what most matters to you, your marriage. The question is, do you want to make room in your life to spend more of your daily life contributing to that? In other words, do you want to create the time to prioritize your priority? If the answer is yes, then give the gift of that to yourself by investing yourself in your priority with your time. And, this can mean so many things. And it doesn't just mean having date night regularly with your honey. It means, just for some, like a small handful of examples, it can mean consciously spending time in your own head on purpose, cultivating fondness. And what's interesting about this actually doesn't take a whole lot of time. Like you could be, doing some mindless task like washing the dishes and cultivating fondness on purpose for your honey. Okay. It could mean consciously getting more in charge of your own thinking and supervising your mind by listening to this podcast more and starting to understand that, right? And doing the work that I suggest in the podcast. It could mean excavating old beliefs that keep you from seeing and feeling how strong your marriage is, for example. For us as HSPs, it could mean, tending to our nervous systems, caretaking our nervous systems, and maybe even spending more time resting or being alone. It can mean learning how to feel safe in your own self, in your own body, mind, heart system. It can mean seeing yourself as a treasure, as a deeply desirable, lovable woman. It can mean removing barriers to your big, beautiful heart so you can feel so much love for your honey and for yourself. It can mean so many things. For my clients, it means all of this and more. And the time that they spend in coaching sessions with me and then spending time doing these sorts of things out in their regular daily life and week, that's an expression of their investment in their marriage, right? It is them living their priorities. It is them showing their commitment to their dreams that they have for themselves. And so, of course, the result of that is that they actually bring their dreams of living in and having a loving, secure marriage. They bring that dream to life. They actually start experiencing that, feeling it tangibly and palpably and seeing evidence of it all around. Yeah? So, my friend, if having an amazing, loving marriage, or however you articulate that, is really important to you, is one of the things that matters most to you, don't let your lizard brain be the part of you that chooses how you spend your time, that chooses what actually is your priority. Let your wise brain, your higher brain, your heart, the more conscious part of you that actually has the power to make your life into what you want it to be, let that part be in charge. Let that part drive the bus. In other words, choose to make time for what most matters to you. And I want to offer you some help here on dealing with the lizard brain, because lizard brain's likely to come up and be like, but I don't have time. How am I going to fit that in? Right? So if your thoughts turn to, if your lizard brain does start piping up, say you have the idea that you're going to spend some more time this next week, but then your lizard brain starts being like, but there's not time. You have to do the cookies for the bake sale. Or, there's an opportunity for you to spend time with your partner or do some of the work that I just mentioned, for example, to, cultivate the marriage you want. And then your brain chimes in as like, oh, actually, there's not time today because I've got X, Y, Z, right? When you notice that happening, you can question it. right? You can be like, really, lizard brain? Do I have to fold the laundry right now? Do I have to, make this email perfect? Do I have to cook dinner? Right? If it tells you you have to do this or that and there's not enough time, you can tell it like, hey, lizard friend, we actually have plenty of time. We don't have to cook dinner. We can order takeout. And instead of spending that time cooking, we can spend time with our honey or cultivating that fondness. Yeah. So some of this work really requires this like loving discipline and what I call supervising that lizard brain. The lizard brain is, I've called it before, like a toddler with a knife. That's what one of my teachers, Brooke Castillo, calls it. It's like, it's not trying to create what you want for you. It's just trying to keep you surviving. But surviving doesn't equal thriving. Surviving mode doesn't give you a thriving marriage, right? Okay. So I also invite you to notice along these lines, it's your own expectations of yourself that are limiting you from actually making time for what matters. Do you hear that? It's your own expectations of yourself that are keeping you from what you really want. You expect yourself maybe to never be late, or to not skip the barbecue you were invited to, or to make those cookies for your kids' bake sale, right? Or to be so well regarded at work that you spend 10 hours a day working. Or a whole host of things, like check out for yourself. What are you demanding of yourself? What are you expecting of yourself? I know I've had to work on my like very demanding inner lizard. We could call it that. Like this part of myself that has such high standards for myself and demands so much of myself. And oftentimes it comes ultimately down to this need to be approved of by the world. I could go on long tangents about this. That approval needs to really come from within, and then you won't be running the rat race to try to prove yourself left and right all the time. You won't be expecting all of this from yourself in order to reach that approval, in order to feel safe and good enough. Yeah? So the truth is, if you've demanded all these things of yourself that you quote unquote have to do, you can just decide to undemand these things of yourself and love yourself fiercely. These things, doing these things, getting these things done, doing them perfectly, all of this, they don't have anything to do with how approval worthy you are and how lovable you are. So you can undemand these things of yourself and realign with what most matters to you. Yeah? So right now you can start doing that by asking yourself, to actually like unclog your schedule and like start creating more time for what really matters to you. You can ask yourself right now, where do I have time in my week, in my day? You see how I did that? It's not like why do I not have time, but where do I have the time to dedicate towards what I most desire, to dedicate towards the love I want to experience in my marriage? Another question, what am I spending time doing that isn't contributing to my top priorities? Like really take stock of your week, your day, right? And then ask yourself, what can I cut? What can I delegate, right? So ask yourself these questions. And then another trick you can do is put the priorities that you have, the activities that will support the priority that you have of having an amazing, loving marriage, put all those things in your calendar before you put the other things that your brain has been telling you have to do, right? Like before the other things you normally fill your time with. Scheduling time for your marriage like this is a super powerful move in making your marriage what you want it to be. And on this note, I'll point you in the direction. I wrote an article for Elephant Journal some time ago that it's on my website on the homepage. I highly recommend checking that one out by going to my homepage and clicking the Elephant Journal link. That's a little ways down that page. And that homepage, my website is lifeisworthloving.com. So definitely check that out. But the bigger point here is that you get to get creative and solve for freeing up time to put towards what most matters to you, right? And when you have the clarity of what most matters to you, you'll have the fuel to be creative and make the time you need to put towards that dream, right? Now, one more thing I want to offer, a little side note here, is if you do know that your marriage is a top priority and you truly want that, that vision that you have for the ideal marriage that you want to come to life, but you're feeling a little like lack of juiciness around it, I invite you to spend some time like rejuicifying it, like feeling into how amazing it would be to have that, so you can connect to the fuel that you need to make these changes and put it forefront and make it a priority. In other words, another way of putting this is connecting to the value it will bring you in your life when you get there, when you have that marriage. And I actually have an episode that would be really great for you to listen to if you're feeling like that need to kind of rejuicify. And it's called Happy Marriage Value. It's episode 26. Take a listen. It's a really good one. It will really help you connect to a deeper knowing of the value of this marriage that you want. And now I'm inspired to share the quote by I'm going to botch his name. Goethe. You've probably all heard it before, but it's such a good one. I'm going to share it here. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves to. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events, issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. It is a bold act to choose to prioritize with your time, with your energy, with your attention, and with your money even, the things that most matter to you. Yes. But when you do, when you commit with all of that, it is the most powerful gesture, the most powerful move you can make to actually make that dream come to life. And there is magic in it, no doubt. I've watched it so many times in my clients. They took this bold act of coaching with me and prioritizing their marriage. And the magic was that they began to treasure their marriage and feel treasured in their marriage and have the kind of experiences with their partner that had been eluding them, that they'd been yearning for so long. The love, the connection, the intimacy, the safety, the lightness, the laughter, the passion. And you can have that too. And I'm so excited to announce that coming soon is a new and beautiful way for you to do this work with me. I'm still keeping the details a little bit of a secret, but I'm bursting with joy and excitement to be able to offer this to all of you. Coming soon. So stay tuned. Look out for the gold that's coming your way. And be oh so well.